In my video today, I'm going to be talking about the Dehancer film emulation plugin. Okay, so I know there's plenty of other YouTube videos, blog articles, what have you on Dehancer. Full disclosure, Dehancer did contact me last year. They asked me if I would be willing to write a review on my website of their plugin after using it for a little bit. And I said, sure, why not? I would love to. So they sent me a free trial. I used it for a little bit, wrote a review. I now wanted to take that review and share it here on YouTube, just my own personal impressions. They gave me no instructions whatsoever, no parameters. I could write whatever I wanted to write, just give an honest review of the product. So let's jump right in and talk about Dehancer. When you first get on the Dehancer website, it could feel a little bit overwhelming. So you want to make sure that you're downloading the right plugin for your specific NLE. There is a pro version, there is a light version. I'm not going to get into the details here about what each of those plugins offer. I will link to another video in the description below where you can get a good overview of what each plugin offers. But I'm going to be talking about the Dehancer Pro plugin throughout this video. Now, I did run into one hiccup when I was first installing the plugin. After the installer runs and you launch Dehancer for the first time, you're going to see a profile fetcher dialog box pop up. And what it's going to do is automatically run through a list of updates that it needs to go through. So you'll see it downloading camera profiles, any updated film stocks, anything that it needs to get going. Now, the one hiccup I ran into when the profile fetcher dialog box first appeared is that nothing seemed to be happening. Yes, there's a progress bar there so you can check status, but it seemed to freeze for me, and I wasn't really sure if it had finished downloading everything. I wasn't really sure if it was actually properly installed within Premiere. I rolled the dice. I closed out the profile fetcher dialog box, just went ahead and launched Premiere up to see what happened. I was pleased to find out that yes, it had in fact installed correctly, and it seemed to be right there in my effects folder within Premiere. So everything seemed to be working. So far, so good. All right, so I've opened up Premiere Pro, and as you can see, I've just been using this sequence here, Dehancer Test Vericam, to put all of this together. This is a scene from my latest short film, That's My House. So when I first installed Dehancer and the profile fetcher dialog box came up and nothing happened, like I said, I just closed it out, opened up Premiere, went to my effects. You could either start typing in Dehancer, and there it is, or twirl down video effects and film emulation, and there it is, and just drag it over onto your clip. Now, at this point, you're probably going to need to do two things because you might see a watermark over your footage. So you'll need to do two things once you have Premiere open. You're going to need to activate the plugin, and you're going to need to run the profile fetcher in case it didn't work for you the first time, like it didn't work for me. Let's go ahead and highlight our clip here where I've added Dehancer Pro. At the very bottom, you'll see license info, and then check profiles. Check profiles is your profile fetcher dialog. So then what you're going to do is you're going to click on your license info button. You're going to enter in your login information that you used when you signed up for Dehancer, and then also your activation key. Your watermark will be removed and you're ready to use Dehancer. Next, click Check Profiles. Run that profile fetcher again. Now this time, when I did it, I had absolutely no issues. Here's the important thing. After you do all this, restart Premiere Pro or whatever software you're using. Restart it, relaunch it so everything can take effect. So you've activated your plugin, you've run the profile fetcher, you've restarted your NLE. Here's where I ran into another little bit of an issue. So I started working with the plugin, went to the camera input drop-down menu so I could select my source camera. Everything was grayed out. I couldn't select anything but the standard Rec 709. So what I did was I just deleted the effect off my clip, reapplied it, everything was good to go. It kind of reset itself, so I was off and running. Just looking at all the parameters that are available within the Dehancer plugin and all of the things you can do to fine-tune the grade, it was a little intimidating. There's so many things, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to take forever to to grade even the simplest of shots. But again, this is where I'm going to shout out Dehancer's wonderful support team, because when you download the plugin, it does come with a PDF to help you get started, to help you through some of the more basic issues that you might find, some tips and tricks. The website itself, again, has so much documentation. It's really going to be helpful here. The workflow is pretty straightforward. So once you kind of get into it and start working with each of these tools, I found that I was able to actually grade fairly quickly once I kind of got in and started learning what everything does. So the first thing I did, I selected Panasonic V-Log, hit apply, and it instantly applied a very contrasty look to start off with. When I twirl down the film stock options that are there in Dehancer, I was really blown away by just how many different film stocks you can choose from. There are way more here than there are with Film Convert. And what I would like to see from Dehancer in a future update is maybe a little bit of organization here. So instead of just this one long list, divide these up into categories like black and white film stocks, motion picture film stocks, photography film stocks, and that'll give someone who maybe isn't accustomed to using physical film, give them an idea of where to start. For the purposes of my test and the footage I was using, I selected the Kodak Vision 3 50D film stock, and as soon as that was applied, it was so close to where I wanted this shot to be. It was really impressive. Now, what I did notice is that Dehancer will automatically apply some grain, and I think in my opinion, for my taste, it was a little bit too heavy, a lot heavier than the default grain from Film Convert. So what you can do there, twirl down your film grain settings. You have a lot of options. You can really fine tune that grain to where you like it. Here's a rundown of some things that I really, really liked about Dehancer. The first thing are the film stocks. Not only are there a lot to choose from, but I found that when you applied the effect, the result was very subtle. It wasn't too heavy-handed. For those of you that use Premiere and like using the Lumetri tools that are built in, you've probably noticed that when you use some of the Lumetri built-in film stocks or creative looks, the result can be pretty heavy-handed, and it could really look artificial. And you might have to use that intensity slider to kind of dial it in. Not so with the film stocks found in Dehancer. They are very subtle. They feel natural. They feel authentic to the clip itself, and they don't feel like like a painted on LUT. The highlight controls are another feature that I really liked about Dehancer. You can see where your highlights start to clip, and you can start to dial that back a little bit so that you can start seeing some of that detail. So for the shot that I was using from my film, That's My House, I wanted to make sure that I could still preserve some of that cloud detail in the sky in the top right corner of the frame. And I found that by using the highlight control and dialing that in, pushing or pulling it one way or the other, I could really start to retain some of those highlights. But remember, the better quality footage you can give to Dehancer, the better quality footage you're going to have on the back end after these effects are applied. If your highlights have already been clipped for not exposing properly on set, there's not a lot that plugins like Dehancer are going to be able to do for you. Another control I really liked is the push or pull feature, similar to how actual film stocks respond when you either underexpose or overexpose. You can use this slider in the push-pull feature, and the color of your footage will respond accordingly. Again, for those that have worked within Premiere, you know that built-in vignette within Lumetri, the tools that you have at your disposal to really fine-tune that vignette, aren't that great. Within Dehancer, you have a lot more control of the vignette, where it's placed, where the center point is, and where you can really kind of fine-tune it a lot better to draw your viewer's attention into a specific area of the frame. I also really liked the monitor settings. Being able to see my shot with a false color mode was extremely helpful to ensure that as I was making adjustments, everything within the frame stayed within the proper exposures. And then there are the little things that Dehancer developers thought to add in that really are just kind of a nice touch when it comes to emulating the experience of film. Gate weave is one, and also overscan is another. With gate weave, that feature really mimics the physical attributes of film. So as film moves through the camera and it moves through the gate within the camera, it actually moves ever so slightly as it's being pulled through the camera. So gate weave, when you make those adjustments, you can really either intensify that movement or bring it back a little bit just to give that film just a slight subtle movement that really feels tangible. And film breath gives your footage slight changes in exposure and color, which really mimics how film stock works. When you're moving from frame to frame, there might be some slight irregularities just due to the nature of film itself. Now, the one performance issue that I did see come up time and time again when I was doing my own research in using Dehancer were performance issues as it related to playback once you start applying Dehancer and adding on all of these parameters. People were talking about how their playback was stuttering, their playback would freeze, it wasn't playing in real time. What can we do about it? Well, first, again, Dehancer has wonderful documentation on their website, so no brainer. Always make sure that your particular system has the right requirements that Dehancer recommends. I was using an M1 MacBook Pro with 32 gigs of RAM, and when I worked with the 4K footage and I applied Dehancer, I did see slight stuttering on playback. It didn't freeze. It wasn't a hindrance to what I was doing. It was virtually real time. It was just a slight strobing, so the motion wasn't perfectly smooth. When I dropped my playback resolution down to a half rather than full, the problem was gone. No issues whatsoever. 1080p, don't even need to worry about it. It worked perfectly fine. Now, the film grain, and Dehancer will tell you this in their documentation, the film grain is the feature that is the most memory intensive feature. So maybe when you're working with Dehancer, maybe you decide to add the film grain on last if you are experiencing performance issues. This is an issue to keep in mind when you're shopping around for film emulation plugins, but in my experience, it's not going to be a deal breaker if you follow the system spec requirements. So can you achieve the film look with plugins like Dehancer? Well, remember, it all goes back to how you captured your footage on set. The quality of the footage you give to Dehancer determines the output that you're going to receive. So again, don't expect to shoot subpar footage that isn't properly exposed, that isn't properly lit, and then expect miracles out of these plugins. But if you're shooting a log, if you have a full dynamic range, if you have shot your image with proper exposure, if you understand cinematography, lighting, lens choices, production design, I think you're going to be really pleased with the results. There are cheaper film emulation plugins on the market for sure, so price might be a barrier for you, and that's okay. You might be better suited for cheaper alternatives. But at the same time, Dehancer offers so much, so many different features that, you might find everything that you need within Dehancer rather than going a la carte and purchasing and installing a lot of separate plugins. Just something to keep in mind. The money you spend on Dehancer might have been money that you were going to spend anyway on multiple plugins, but you found everything you need within Dehancer itself. That's up to you. I think the results of using Dehancer are really good, and I think that if you're a serious video editor and want to really enhance the color grade of your footage, then I think Dehancer is certainly worth your consideration. If you have any other tips, tricks, advice on using Dehancer or any things that you've come across, problems, solutions, things that you've found working with this plugin, drop those thoughts in the comments. Let's all help each other out. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. You can find me and everything that I'm doing at linktree.com/ClintTill.